Every journey is a search, a quest to unravel the self. I reflect on my journey which began a year ago.
You are in Kulu, so Kulu is known as the Valley of the Gods.
Devbhumi, the land of the gods, yes.
Meru helped me in my exploration of this mythical landscape. People lived off the land, mostly in villages. I discovered that people here were in a dance with the divine every day of their lives. Every village here was home to several gods and ancient village deities. For the locals, their deities were considered living gods. And these individualistic gods were not just confined to the temple, but moved around on beautifully decorated palanquins. The gods of the valley walked and danced with their people and even spoke to them. They spoke through their specially selected mediums, the shamans, locally called gurus. A Himachali shaman's most important role was to intute the will of the divine, which he did by ritually invoking his deity and going into divine possession trance, an altered state of consciousness which allowed the spirit of the deity to take over his body and speak through him. He would then speak, or as the locals believed, their god spoke to them. For the locals, this cosmos of gods, goddesses and shamans, devta, devis and gurs, was their reality. It formed the collective consciousness of the community, and their faith in this was absolute. I discovered that the gift of getting into trance possession was a very essential aspect of being a Himachali shaman. A shaman was a medium and myth keeper. But what exactly was his importance in Himachali society? Meru explained, a shaman brought the divine into the daily lives of the people, and he offers to take me for a pooch.
What's a pooch?
Pooch is like asking the question to the Devi. So whatever problems you have, shaman. So the shaman is the interpreter.
Meru took me to witness the pooch session of a popular shaman. Gur Hardyal ritually invoked his Devi and went into divine possession trance. Soon he was taken over by his Devi's spirit. People presented the Devi with all their problems, causes and cures of illnesses, dates for sowing, harvesting or marriages, financial troubles and all sorts of personal issues. The pooch session was like a direct question and answer session with God. But I was still skeptical till my next up-close and personal encounter. I was invited to a private pooch session where divine intervention was sought through Tejsing, the shaman of a snake god. Tejsing invoked his devta and went into divine possession trance. Suddenly, Tejsing addressed me. Inexplicably, I was completely overwhelmed. I was amazed. Tejsing had predicted that my ill health was the result of a spirit illness. So this is what I sought to explore next: spirit illness, their causes and cures. Meru took me to the village temple of Batar, where the Devta was renowned for curing spirit illness. I heard horrific sounds coming from inside. From the entrance, I saw a young woman screaming. I watched the mysterious proceedings. A man brought out the Devi's sacred chains and put them around the woman's neck. Guru Rudramani told me that spirit illness problems were quite common in the valley. Ill health or misfortunes were in most instances the result of an evil eye, black magic or spirit possession, and their cures required sacred healing. I discovered that mild spirit illness problems could be corrected by gurus conducting certain magical religious practices which had been handed down in oral tradition over generations. But in the most extreme cases, like spirit possession, the guru may perform an exorcism. On the night of the exorcism, the family gathered in the temple courtyard. Soon, Guru Hardyal went into deep divine possession trance. He blessed the sheep, he thrashed himself with the Devi's sacred iron chains, battling with the evil spirit that was distressing the family. Hardyal then picked up the sheep and circled the family with it, transferring the evil spirit afflicting the family into the sheep. Then he rushed off, and the sheep was carried out after him to be sacrificed, thereby destroying the evil spirit. Later, I had pondered about spirit illness and the faith of the people in sacred healing. Their faith was based on their belief in the divine and a willingness to accept the greater wisdom of this power. But how did sacred healing work, and was it effective?
The very few scientific studies on this topic have shown that ritual healing has a rate of success that is comparable with something like psychotherapy.
Yes, sacred healing was powerful. It addressed not just the individual, but the family unit as well as the community. And Himachali shamans are sacred healers. They are doctors, priests, astrologers, oracles, psychotherapists, and transmitters of spiritual energies. But what was their relevance in the 21st century? And what could the shamans teach me about healing myself? Winter beckons. There is fresh snow on the peaks. The air is crisp and cool, and the leaves have gilded. Today, I'm off for my next shamanic encounter, which promises to be a unique one. As I drive through Manali, Kulu Valley's popular tourist haven, I notice that the influences of cosmopolitan culture and lifestyle have grown more pervasive. This shifting socio-cultural milieu marks the advent of the New Age shaman. And I was off to meet the lone woman shaman of Manali. En route, Meru tells me more about this intriguing shaman. Tuli is the shaman of Nav Durga Devi, an amalgamation of 9 Hindu goddesses representing the different aspects of the mother goddess. father was a shaman, so she had grown up witnessing his shamanic practices and way of life. She began experiencing transpossession at a very early age, which was largely ignored, as she was a female. In this patriarchal society, only men are known to become shamans. By her teens, Tuli was married and well settled in domesticity. Unfortunately, her husband died early, leaving 3 children to fend for. Tuli began tailoring to earn an income. However, she also felt an irresistible urge to serve her Devi. So 7 years ago, she built this temple adjacent to her home. Tuli began regular pooch, divination sessions, twice a week, with this intriguing shaman who considers herself a manifestation of the divine feminine.
औरतें तो बहुत सालों साल से हैं और ये काफ़ी नए रूप में है और औरतें तो बहुत कम हैं। आप शायद
एक ही है, वैसे मनाली एरिया में तो मैं ही हूँ।
अच्छा, आप मुझे बताइए कि ये आप
जैसे बचपन में मैं छोटी सी थी, 10-11 साल की होगी लगभग, तो उस टाइम ऐसा मतलब बुरा नहीं लगा था हमें, तो हमें तो पता भी नहीं था, बचपन में था, छोटी थी उस टाइम।
कि कैसे हुआ था पहली बार?
खुद को पता नहीं चलता है कि भाई क्या हुआ, हमने क्या किया, कहाँ गए, इस चीज़ का पता नहीं होता है।
अच्छा।
और दूसरे आदमी बताते हैं कि तुझे ऐसा हुआ था, ये होता है।
अच्छा, तो फिर क्या हुआ उसके बाद?
कष्ट था उस दौरान, मेरे पे खेल चढ़ गई है माँ की, को कुछ किया होगा, जैसे हमारे यहाँ फूक फाक करते हैं, कुछ हाथ उत लगा देते हैं, तो उससे जो है जिसको तकलीफ है वो ठीक हो जाती है।
तो आपको कब पता चला कि किसका खेल आपके ऊपर चढ़ रहा है?
हाँ, 22-1 साल की उम्र होगी। मेरे हाथ से खेल आते रहती थी मेरे को बीच बीच में। तो पहले स्टार्टिंग में तो हमने छोटे से ऐसे फ़ोटो रखी हुई थी बाहर, और ते टाइम जो है फिर सवाल पूछते हैं जब खेल चढ़ती है, तो फिर मैंने बताया था कि भाई मेरे पे जो है नव दुर्गा जो माता है हमारे पास।
ये आप वो सब आपको किसने सिखाया?
ये माँ खुद बताती है जी।
अच्छा।
जैसे दिन भी माता बताती है कि मैं फलाने दिन इनके घर जाऊंगी।
It's time for the pooch to begin, and Tuli allows me to film it. Outside in the temple complex, several people have gathered to ask Nav Durga Devi for a redressal from their problems. I notice something peculiar. The Devi's palanquin is moving around, seeming to engage the devotees. Since the palanquin is the personification of the Devi herself, it is up to the Devi to choose who she wants to call for healing. The palanquin rushes towards a man.
मतलब दवाई खाते रहा, मतलब 2 महीना हो गया, मतलब दवाई खाने से कोई लग नहीं रहा है ना, तो इसलिए किसी ने बिगाड़ा तो नहीं है करके मतलब।
Tuli, in trance, had announced his affliction as an evil spirit possession, which required sacred healing. The palanquin places the iron chains on Deepak to dispel negative energies. The palanquin keeps rushing towards Tuli, expressing the Devi's affinity for her medium. Suddenly, Tuli begins to sway violently. She is now in a trance, possessed by the fiery aspect of her goddess. She makes a go for Deepak, putting the trident on his chest, battling with the evil spirit. Sunil, Tuli's son who is assisting her, now hands her a sword. Tuli now makes a protective circle around Deepak with the sword to disable the evil spirit from possessing him again. She then blesses him by showering holy ash over him, signifying a blowing away of the evil spirit. Tuli's trance is over. The palanquin now rests on Deepak's shoulders to signify the transmission of the goddess's healing powers to him. Later, I asked Tuli about her unusual and dramatic divination session.
पावर होती है तो दो आदमी उठाने वाले होते हैं इसको, एक आगे एक पीछे। तो किसी की भी जो समस्या होगी पहले हम उनसे बातचीत करते हैं कि आपकी क्या समस्या है, आपको क्या प्रॉब्लम है। फिर वो हमें बताते हैं, हम फिर माँ से क्वेश्चन करते हैं कि माँ इनकी ऐसी प्रॉब्लम है, जैसे हाँ ना में जवाब देती है। हाँ बोलना होगा तो एक साइड को मुड़ जाती है माता। अच्छा। अगर इनकार करना होगा तो फिर दो साइड को हिलती है। तो अच्छा। इस तरह से माता हमें जवाब देती है। कुछ या होगी पहले हम उनसे बातचीत करते हैं कि आपकी क्या समस्या है, आपको क्या प्रॉब्लम है। फिर वो हमें बताते हैं, हम फिर माँ से क्वेश्चन करते हैं कि माँ इनकी ऐसी
Tuli's persona and performance were powerful. And she contained all the facets of a traditional shaman. But she had drifted from the mainstream with her innovative practices. So how had she been accepted in this conservative society?
लोगों के विचार अलग चीज़ है, हर तरह की होती है, अलग अलग तरह के विचार होते हैं। तो मुझे कुछ खास नहीं लगता। लोगों के विचार अलग चीज़ है, हमें तो शक्ति का पता है। जब हमें शक्ति का पता है तो लोगों की
लोग हैं जो मनाली के पुराने ख्यालात के लोग हैं, कभी उन्होंने ऐसे बोला कि ये आप कैसे कर सकते?
मेरे सामने किसी ने नहीं कहा कि ऐसा क्यों करती, क्योंकि लोग यहाँ बहुत सारे आते हैं। लोगों को पता है कि इनके ऊपर देवी माँ की खेल आती है। हम बिल्कुल सेवा के भाव से ही करते हैं।
आपके बच्चे भी हैं, तो आप अभी कैसे संभालते हैं?
तो ऐसे ही चलता है। कुछ एक यहाँ लोग भेंट चढ़ाते हैं तो उसी से हम गुजारा करते हैं।
And Tuli's faith in her goddess, and moreover herself, has blossomed into her thriving shamanic practice as a service to her community. Post her pooch session, Tuli begins counseling women who openly discuss intimate problems with her. They come seeking her guidance for issues about husbands, in-laws, children, and sometimes even neighbors. For the local women, Tuli offers them a forum to express their female concerns that they may not with a male shaman. She is also iconic for them as an empowered woman who followed her heart and, albeit struggles, has forged a unique niche for herself in this conservative patriarchal society. Later, I contemplate my experience with Tuli. She symbolizes for me a reawakening in contemporary human psyche of the ancient concept of the divine feminine. I step outdoors for a walk and reflect on the Hindu tradition of the worship of the Mother Goddess. The divine feminine is revered as Shakti, the creative principle of the universe, and the primal face of nature and fertility. She has many facets, some benevolent and some fierce. Like Hidimba Devi, who has an aspect of goddess Kali. Kali is venerated as the creator, preserver, and destroyer of the universe. She is infinite power and infinite bliss, trampling time underfoot. She laughs, tongue lolling out, dancing in wild abandon in her dance of eternal creation. She receives offerings of blood of animals, sacrificed to her as goddess of life and death. As without death, there can be no renewal. I offer her my surrender of my present self and ask for her to activate my dormant primal energy and feminine power. so that I too may dance in the corpse of my lesser self and create myself anew. Every morning, I wake up looking forward to this view. The beauty is overwhelming, and the spirit of nature seems omnipresent and alive. Mother Earth is beautiful and bountiful, a glorious manifestation of the divine feminine. And people in this valley revere the power and the nurturing spirit of Mother Earth, and honor her with propitiation and worship. Meru has invited me to his ancestral village Goshal to show me a few sacred spaces within the village which honor nature elements.
Namaste ji.
Just outside the village, we make our way to an ancient tree.
Anu, this is an ancient tree which has 18 energies. The spirits living here give strength to the deities.
So this is like the energy of the devtas.
Yeah, energy we can call, and whatever offerings we give to the deities, we give here.
So basically this is like the nature spirits.
Yeah, we can
It's a
call it.
nature spirits.
Yeah. When the wishes come true, so then they offer these like iron birds or like anything. I know you should ask Manat for your help.
That's a good idea.
Meru informs me of the local belief that every mountain, every tree, every river and rock is imbued with the spirit of nature. All these natural elements are connected to the great web of life, and all must be honored. People here also worship spirits of mountains which protect villages, spirits of lakes which are sources of power, and even spirits of waterfalls.
I know you can see that waterfall.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the Jogni Fall.
Okay,
That's our Kuldevi,
okay.
the nature spirit, very strong nature spirit.
Huh.
And next month we are going for the puja, so I'll take you there to go.
Okay, sounds good.
And you can see here,
Hmm.
that's Kulan
Right.
side.
Yeah.
So-
That village. That's
Explain you
interesting.
more about them.
On the day of the sacred ceremony, Meru's mother, wife, sister, children and I leave for our 2-hour trek to Jogini Falls. Village women give us offerings to take along for the goddess of the waterfall. Meru tells me about today's ceremony. I know that powers of nature are deified here, which is a throwback to their animistic traditions. And the communion and appeasement of the gods of nature is an integral part of the local culture. Soon we arrive just below Jogini Falls. Spectacular. Jogini Falls and its surroundings are considered sacred as the habitat of Jogini, the water goddess, and therefore kept scrupulously clean. The temple of the Jogini is situated below the waterfall where we pay our respects. Later we head for a cave, which is the residence of another nature spirit who acts as a bodyguard of the Jogini. To propitiate the Jogini, a sheep sacrifice will be offered here. The sheep is ritually prepared. A few grains of sacred rice are put in its ears and holy water sprinkled onto its back. Everyone waits intently. Meru explains that the sheep cannot be sacrificed till the nature spirit accepts it. The acceptance will be in the form of a shiver, which is apparently quite different from the sheep just shaking off the water. Soon the sheep shivers. The sacred offering has been accepted. Meru's mother is happy at achieving her dream, but the sacrifice had unsettled me. Post the ceremony, everyone gathers for prayers. The priest thanks the goddess of the waterfall for her benevolence, asking her to bless us all. Meru and his mother now conduct ceremonial worship of all the little girls present. Meru washes their feet in a ritual which honors the pure form of the Devi present in prepubescent girls. A fitting tribute to the spirit of the divine feminine. In this pristine landscape, which is another manifestation of her virginal form. Later, I ponder about this vastly different reality that I had stepped into. A reality where the belief in the aliveness of the natural world and nature spirits underlies almost all religious rituals. In fact, certain natural spaces in wilderness areas are considered powerful storehouses of a yogini's energy. Several high-altitude lakes in the Kulu Valley are considered sacred as sources of natural power. Deities from all over the valley make special pilgrimages to these lakes. The deities are accompanied by their devotees and their council, including the shaman, the priest, the manager, and of course, the musicians. The deities take a dip in the lake to replenish their energies, as do the people. And tourists are discouraged here to maintain the sanctity of these beautiful geosacred spots. The sustained belief in nature and the wisdom of living in harmony with it has preserved the ecology of this region so far. But I wonder whether these wise traditions will dissolve into contemporary reality and nature too would be devoured by material concerns. When I put this question to Meru, he reveals that this is another amazing facet of a Himachali shaman. Some shamans could commune with the spirits of nature as intermediaries between people and the natural forces. And when things go wrong, it is they who attempt to restore the harmony between man and the natural world.
They won't stay.
As promised, Meru takes me to meet one such shaman. En route, I learn more about him. Gur Indrachand is one of the youngest shamans in this valley. He was chosen by his deity, Devta Parashar Rishi, at the tender age of 12. He follows the traditional system devoutly and despite his youth is greatly respected. Indrachand has a great affinity for nature and spends many hours meditating outdoors. Adept at communing with the forces of nature, he is often approached when locals have problems with natural elements and require intervention. We make our way to the temple complex under a grove of trees. We find Guru Chand surrounded by a few locals. Today he has a pooch, a divination session to mediate with natural elements. Guru Chand, he breaks a hair from his forehead as a promise to convey the Devta's words correctly. He deeply inhales the juniper smoke and his cap falls. He begins to invoke his deity. And Indrajan goes into trance. The Devta now begins to converse with his devotees. A week later, I meet up with Guru Chand, who takes me to his favorite meditation spot.
ऐसे पहाड़ों में जंगलों में जाते हैं जहाँ पर बिल्कुल एकांत हो। अच्छा। वहाँ पर हम थोड़ा प्रकृति का आनंद लेते हैं, थोड़ा मेडिटेशन करके, जो जैसे योगनियाँ पर्वत झरने इनका वास कर लेते हैं, उससे ही हमारे अंदर थोड़ी पावर आ जाती है, उससे ही।
जी आप बताइए।
आपके शरीर में कष्ट है?
हाँ जी।
तो आपके शरीर में ऐसे कुछ तकलीफ रहती, ऐसे काम को कब कर, तो ये हर एक चीज़ में वास करती है। मतलब ये हर एक, जैसे पेड़ में जो योगनी रहती है वो पेड़ से ही अपना शक्ति प्राप्त करती है, और पेड़ से ही उसमें 164 कहते हैं हम लोग।
हाँ जी।
और यहाँ पर जो हमारे इस एरिया में,
तो इस ये अलग प्रकार की विद्या है?
हाँ जी, ये अलग प्रकार की विद्या होती है।
पर ये आपको कौन सिखाता है?
मुझे तो आज तक किसी ने सिखाई है। जैसे हम पहले अपने देवी देवताओं की देवते से ही किया हुआ टोटल, और देवते ने बताया, और ये देवता जो बताता है वो इसी को कर ले।
Indrachand further explained that a universal web of energy supports all life forms, from humans to all elements of the environment. Since we are all interconnected, a mutually supportive balance is essential for our survival and well-being. Shamans in trance access the world of spirit to bring back insights on how people may achieve this balance and live in harmony with nature. I am deeply humbled by Indrachand's profound insights. A Himachali shaman had explained to me the fundamental ecological principle of interdependence, where man and nature are viewed as one biotic community. And this was his experiential knowledge, something that we in the modern world had forgotten. Later, I do as Indrachand had instructed me, meditate in and on nature. And I gleaned that I too could draw on natural energies and reset my personal rhythms to the natural circles of Mother Earth. And then I would heal and be in the flow once again.
So how was the entire year for you? It's been 1 year now. More than 1 year.
I know, but huge learning experience. Very rich, very vibrant, and very unusual. But more than anything else, big learning experience.
Yeah, it was same. I learned a lot.
Was it?
So I used to think like, okay, festivals, they are just for, like drinking and dancing. Since I started going to the festival with you, so I realized like I went to.
It's good to keep your family connections alive
I feel lucky that I'm born in this place,
and in this culture.
Yeah, Anu, now I'm going to take you to the most fabulous Kulu Dussehra.
And how many Devi Devtas are coming?
I think more than 300.
More than 300?
Yeah.
Wow, that'll be quite something.
So now you will know why Kulu is known as a Devbhumi.
And I look forward to it.
Okay, cheers.
So cheers,
I'll take you
Meru.
there.
Thank you.
Bye.
Meru and I drive towards the town of Kulu. En route, Meru tells me more about the famous Kulu Dussehra festival. Every village prepares for this Hindu festival which celebrates the victory of good over evil. Deities, gurs and processions from all over the valley make their way to Kulu. The Dussehra festival is celebrated in honor of Lord Ram, the legendary hero of the holy Hindu epic, the Ramayana. In Kulu, Raja Maheshwar Singh of the erstwhile royal family presides over these magnificent celebrations. Meru and I make our way to the King's Palace, where we have been invited to witness the pageantry.
Hello, thank you so much for inviting me. You're looking
Welcome.
very colorful.
Soon, the King's Palace courtyard is a riot of color and sound. Palanquins and processions of various deities come to bless the king and his family. Accompanying them are, of course, the shamans. And most of the gurs go into divine possession trance and convey the messages of their deities to the king. I spot several faces that I'm familiar with. Here is Gur Hardyal, the oracular shaman. Maheshwar Singh asks Sharwari Devi about the looming threat of terrorism in the country. Hardyal goes into trance and Sharwari Devi speaks to the king. But the king is waiting for his most special guest, Hidimba Devi.
क्योंकि हम पांडव वंश के लोग थे और यहाँ आकर उन्होंने कुम्हार के घर में नौकरी की।
अच्छा।
बनारा गांव आता, वहाँ घड़े बेचने जा रहे थे, तो उसने कहा दादी आप तो चल भी नहीं सकते, अगर जाना है तो मेरे इस घड़े की छिक्की के ऊपर आप बैठ जाओ। फिर हिडम्बा ने अपना रूप दिखाया, वो ऊंची होती गई और ये सारा पहाड़ यहाँ नीचे दाढ़ी जलासनी गाँव है, वहाँ से लेकर रोहतांग तक का एरिया जब नजर आ गया और मुझे कुलदेवी के रूप में मानेंगे, उन्होंने वो वचन उसको दिया, इसलिए हिडम्बा को
तो तब से
उसको राजदादी कहा।
There is much excitement when Hidimba Devi arrives, accompanied by Gur Tularam, the master myth keeper. Maheshwar Singh greets Hidimba Devi, getting very emotional as Tularam evokes his mythology. Tularam now gets into a major trance and sticks his tongue out, signifying Hidimba as a facet of Kali. Dozens of deities and shamans make their way through this courtyard. The energy is exhilarating. Raja Maheshwar Singh now conducts a special pooch called a Jagti. Shamans of the entire valley have gathered for this special pooch. The question of today is whether a large-scale project by a big corporation to build a ski resort here should be allowed. The deities have refused. The resort would disturb the fragile ecosystem of Devbhumi, the land of the gods. I am fascinated by all the shamans I see today. And I am grateful to have experienced their world of myth and magic. At the festival grounds, the melee is overwhelming. The massive palanquin of Lord Raghunath looms over. Palanquins of deities run amok. Shamans go into trance. And I have a bird's eye view. What a spectacular sight! A magnificent display of the faith in the gods, goddesses, and shamans of the valley. My quest was satiated for now. It had brought me healing personal insight. But my search for self and my journey continues.